So good evening, everyone. I'm happy to be here, and I'm happy to talk to you a little bit about my relation to this whole topic that we have been dealing with in the jury. So more or less, what I'm planning to do now is a little bit show how my so to say professional identity is connected to this whole topic that we have been dealing with in the jury recently. As it has been said that I really don't have just, so to say, I don't really have just one professional identity. I'm a teacher at university. I have my own office, and I have a lot of other smaller things to do, that smaller or bigger things to do that I think in general contribute to some kind of attitudes towards urbanity in general. And my intention with this lecture is rather to show a series of projects, really very shortly. Maybe some of them are even not projects that, so to say, contribute to the general notion of urbanism or urban design today, and also partly relate to the jury issues. First of all, just a very short idea that we all know that urban design was more or less defined in the 1950s. The first conference was in at Harvard Design School with Jane Jacobs, Louis Mumford, and Jose Luis Sert was the organizer, and he actually told, after this first conference, he tried to define urban design, and he used a lot of different definitions, like it's part of city planning, it deals with the physical form of the city, most creative phase of city planning, in which imagination and artistic capacities play an important part. Notion of overarching design discipline for all of those who are, so to say, urban-minded. And it's kind of a common base for landscape architects, urban planners, and architects, urban designers to deal with the built environment. Yes, it's basically, in a way, it's a very narrow definition, because it mainly concentrates on, I think, on space. And this is what this is the attitude that we usually define urban design. It's space, and very quickly two competitions. Oops, there it comes back. So two competitions from my past, they were made just after graduation, or actually it's three competitions where in all of these competitions the main issue, or the main, so to say, focus is the context or the spatial context that defines the tools how to react on specific urban design issues. This is what appears in this first series of drawings. This is what appears in this big international competition where I was responsible for the urban design part with another Hungarian office. And this is what appears in this third competition, where it's rather the landscape scale of the site, this vastness of vegetation and landscape that defined, and also the infrastructure of the surrounding that defined intervention. Yes, this is so to say a more traditional way of looking at urban design. But I would like to show a series of other projects from the last 2-3 years that I participated in. Some of them I participated in, some of them are more or less connected to me in a not so direct way. I will also talk about that. Of course, there are also bigger scales which appear also in urban planning. We are very lucky in our office to deal with one of the most challenging urban planning and urban design tasks, I think, in Central Eastern Europe. Paks is a city well known for its nuclear power plant, which is going to be extended, and fortunately we don't have to deal with that, because we don't know how to do. But we, as a result of this project, the city, which is something like that, will grow. And this orange shows the new areas where intervention will happen. And this is a really huge project where almost a complete new city has to be built on a lot of different bases. Of course, this small presentation goes beyond also in time and scale to go deep into this issue. It contains a lot of different approaches, a lot of new housing. More than 10,000 people will appear in this city in a few years. It's a city with around 20,000 people. More conventional urban planning tasks, a little bit more innovative urban planning tasks. So more innovative urban planning tasks will also appear. But from my point of view, I think there are two so to say, fields where really more interesting way of dealing with urban design appears. One of them is this issue, large-scale issue of sustainability, where we actually developed an interesting methodology to deal with green in general, water in general, infrastructure and public spaces in general in a very complex way through detailed analysis. And we defined most of the interventions on the basis of how to supplement and refine a continuous network based on these 4 topics. It's a design methodology which has some roots in other professional fields, but this has been widely used in a city scale in this case. The other interesting thing which I still find very, very exciting, that through this big project, through this big construction, thousands of people will have to be hosted temporarily, which also creates very special needs. And moving quickly, because really time is limited, moving to another city where, again, still city scale, a city scale problem in Miskolc. It's a northern part, on the northeastern part of Hungary, a city which used to have around 220,000 people, and today the population of the city is decreasing, very much thanks to its so to say, industrial past, which disappeared after the political changes. And with some fellows from the Department of Urban Planning and Design, we got this very challenging task to moderate workshop, several days workshop with the participation of politicians, local architects, local NGOs, young architects, and so on. And we had the task somehow to define a new vision for the city, not only at the political level, but to go deeper into this, and through very intense participatory work, define this new vision also as a spatial series or proposition of spatial interventions. It was a very, very interesting process, since also politicians from the highest level probably at the first time sat down at the same table with local NGOs, local people, local professionals, and really produced a lot of useful results. Moving to smaller scale, the human scale. Here I will show 3, so to say, fields of interaction. When we talk about urban design and urban planning, or urbanity in general, I think one thing that is the most important, that we have to somehow find ways to talk to people. Talk to people and try to redefine their thoughts through a new approach towards space, towards urbanity, and towards cultural context. I personally believe, or maybe I'm simplifying this in a way, but I believe there are three main fields of this interaction. This first project connected to this is done by Tihanyi Dominika, a fellow at our department, invited landscape architect at our faculty. She runs her own landscape design office, and she had a very interesting project in the urban regeneration program, social regeneration program of Magdalnak Water in Budapest, which was also partly financed by European Union. That's maybe not the more important thing, but rather what is important, that is a real classical social renewal program with the integration of local people. It had a lot of elements. I'm not going too deep into this now. What is important now for us is just the public space design of a small square, Teleki László Square here, which is next to an old market hall, which has been there for long decades and has been one of the most important markets, not only dealing with vegetables, but everything that is possible. So this is the place where even during socialism you could buy gold blocks or anything that you can imagine. And what is really interesting or important now is this process where the two landscape architects, they are actually here, and this is the other guy, participated in the process with the same importance as all the locals. And they generated a plan together or a design together where every single element of the design was actually defined through this process. Even the public art, and the elements of layout were defined by these people. And what actually resulted that this group of people formed an association at the end, and they are still running and maintaining this public space. They are closing it for night, they are collecting money for its maintenance, and so on. The second level of, so to say, intervention is this academic level, I think. Academic level, which of course has this spatial attitude, that we deal with large-scale spatial entities. But I also find it very important that already at an academic level, this is a Studio Week project that we did a few years ago, where we actually go to the city, we deal with real problems, we actually play role games connected to real participation in the city. And a little bit connected to this university intervention. This is something really exciting, which I was very happy to be part of. Budapest has this vast wooden model, 1 to 500 scale wooden model of its center. And what is really interesting or exciting about it, that it has been stored in a storage room like that for more than 20 years. And which resulted in a situation that nobody could put it together. And with 10 students, we got this absolutely fantastic task. I think this is the most exciting and most fantastic urban puzzle game of the whole world, that for 2 months, with 10 students and 3 colleagues, we had the task to put it together. About 80% of the buildings had their place, but another 20% had to be puzzled and put together, which is an absolutely fantastic, also educational tool to talk about city urban structures and so on. But what was really interesting, and what we could see, that this piece of art, or this huge piece of art, is an absolutely brilliant tool to talk about urbanity in general. This is the chief architect of the city from that time. And of course, this model has a great role in education, and education not at the university level, but also for younger generations. This Bartok Visual Studio is just partly connected to me. It's run by three nice women. One of them is my wife. The other one is my PhD student. The third one I know. They are running this Bartok Visual Studio, or have been running, where the task is to deal with 10, 12-year-old students concentrating on local identity, getting to know your environment, and generating notions of space and urban context already at this age. And finally, still I would like to talk about urban design as a tool for experimentation. It has been mentioned that I was the national coordinator of Europan Hungary. I don't know how much Europan is known. It's I personally believe one of the most interesting initiations of urban design in Europe. It's a series of national bodies who are running urban design competitions with the same criteria in every country. It's a process that has been running for 20 years, or more than almost 25 years by now, and it usually thousands of teams are participating in these urban design competitions in different locations all around Europe. And what I would like to talk about this urban Europan in the context that I really believe that urban design does not only have the role to actually propose something, but it also has the role to experiment with processes, experiment with space, experiment with everything that's there in the city. We had this site along Rákos Creek, which is a very weird site. It's 5 kilometers long, so it's almost practically impossible to deal with. It's a narrow strip of land which is completely or mostly unused. And what was really interesting about this competition, that completely different approaches were used by the participants. And also the three, so to say, winners have used completely different strategies. Maybe also the projects are interesting to go deep, but right now for me it's more important the strategy that they are actually using. This one, which became like runner-up or a special mention, the Tune-Up Zublo, was a project which was really using the classical tools of urban design. It gave a vision. It gave a vision which was very much based on program, inserting a lot of new elements and organizing all these new elements into a very specific spatial order, and of course also building not too much, but placing buildings on specific locations which actually define everything that can happen there. This is, so to say, the classical approach. This is what we have been doing for many years. We build the city, and the city should go there where all the buildings are. There were nevertheless, there were two other projects which were more, so to say, sensitive in a way. One of the winners, there were two winners finally. One of the winners was done by a Hungarian team, this chain reaction project, which already started to deal with minor, smaller interventions. Not really proposing a complete new vision, but rather renaturalizing this whole strip and saying you just have to find those very small identity forming elements which give a notion of identity, which give a notion of being personal on the site, and those should generate new activities all along the creek. The other winner was even much more interesting, causing a lot of troubles. And what was really interesting, that this caused really a lot of problems at the political level, at the local political municipality level, because the mayor could not really accept this. This winner was not even proposing a project. It said that urban designer, or we as designers, we are not entitled to propose a project. It just said that, oh, I like the site, there are a lot of possibilities here. Lot of different approaches, from very small scale interventions like small sports field or small ping pong tables, up to really large interventions concerning big infrastructures or housing. So there are a lot of possibilities, but it's not the urban designer who should decide, but it's the local community who should decide. So it's just a menu. Like if you go to the restaurant and you pick what you would do on the site. So it didn't even propose a project, it just proposed a possibility of a lot of different projects with completely different outcomes. And even in the presentation of the project, it actually concentrated on possible outcomes of all this approach. And finally, just to conclude very shortly, I really don't want to say too complicated things, but I really personally believe that today, when we deal with ideas, we deal with space, we deal with society, we deal with a lot of issues we do not have, and we cannot afford to have a precise definition for urban design. It's not really, it cannot be really defined. It's rather a mindset. Which at the end of the day actually deals with different communities or forms of communities. And what actually, so to say, connects urban designers or urban planners is their commitment to city life, their commitment to dealing with this big urban machine, what we call the city. And as the last sentence, I personally believe that urban design is rather just a frame of mind. So it's an approach to what we have all around us, and there are hundreds of different possibilities to deal with. The important thing is that we have to somehow produce tools to enhance urbanity or enhance the qualities of local communities. So this is my last sentence. Thank you for your attention.